Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Major General Moorhead Guard Reserve Breakfast. A little light on food this morning. So before we begin, I want to, by way of explanation, talk to you about a couple things. First, I apologize for anybody who was not able to get in, although I think we got most everybody in, to be honest with you, because we're working under the COVID limitations that have been imposed on us for this AUSA annual conference. We had over 600 requests for tickets, and we're trying to accommodate everybody we can. I think the count ended up being 250 that we let through the door. So again, for the people who were unable to get in, primarily I want to apologize for the inconvenience. Mask protocol. When you're speaking or on the stage, we'd ask you to remove your mask if you're comfortable doing that, so we can take a picture and see who you are for the most part. So if you do that, I was tempted to say that I'm from South Dakota, for those of you who don't know. I was tempted to say something politically incorrect, like the mask could be, or the stage could be considered to be a small part of South Dakota. I didn't say that. Okay, so let's begin. Would Chaplain Brigadier General Patrick Dolan, U.S. Army retired, come to the stage, please?
Thank you. Please remain seated for the blessing and join us in prayer if you choose to do so. Lord God, in the midst of pandemic restrictions, we praise your name this morning and thank you for the many blessings we still receive that you have given us: our lives, our health, our families, our communities, and all the good things this day. We ask you to bless our speaker and all of us listeners. Bless especially our fellow military who stand in harm's way all around the world, including any behind enemy lines or in medical facilities. Bless our commanders at the highest levels with the wisdom and courage they need to enable all people to live peacefully in freedom and with a respect for human rights. Help us all, Guard, Reserve, and Active, to safeguard the opportunity for future generations to live out the hopes and dreams of the founders of our nation, but in their own way, in their own time. Bless our families and our employers who also sacrifice to allow us to be called at times to the defense of the nation we all love dearly. May your grace encourage us to grow together in goodness this day and every day as we spend our energy and even our lives, if necessary, to enable our nation to continue to be a beacon of hope in a troubled world. We ask this of you, who are that one Lord and God, true and living, now and forever. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain. So good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ray Carpenter, and I will act as your host today for the Robert Moorhead Breakfast or Forum, better known as the Guard and Reserve Breakfast. Your scheduled host today was supposed to be Jack Stultz, Lieutenant General retired. Obviously, I'm not Jack. I'm a bit thinner and a lot grayer. Jack called me yesterday morning to tell me his dilemma. Seems his flight out of Florida had been canceled, and the airlines were holding him hostage in Florida. Now, I'm from South Dakota, and winter is just around the corner, and being held hostage in Florida doesn't sound like a bad deal to me. For those of you who know my career, you know I've managed to make a living out of being an actor. My last acting job was as a director of the Army National Guard. I was humbled and privileged to hold that position for almost 3 years, and my record stands today. And here I am again, out of retirement, with another acting job. acting as your host today, and it is my distinct honor and privilege to do so. This forum provides a great opportunity to hear from the leadership of the Guard and Reserve and the Commander of Forces Command. It is also a very special time to recognize our Army soldiers and civilians for their achievements, as well as a little later AUSA chapters and their leaders and members for excellence. The breakfast is named for Major General Robert G. Moorhead. Major General Moorhead rose to the rank of Major General in the Indiana National Guard and served as the 38th Division Commander. He also served as the Deputy Commander for TRADOC. He was very active in the Association of the United States Army and became President and CEO of AUSA. So for us in the Guard and Reserve, it's rather instructive to know that we had a Guardsman who was the President of AUSA and had a total force policy, if you will, even back then. I'd like to introduce some of our distinguished guests. First of all, General Daniel Howkinson, Chief of the National Guard Bureau. Could we give him a round of applause? Lieutenant John A. Jensen, Director of the Army National Guard. Please stand. Command Sergeant Major John Sampa, Command Sergeant Major of the Army National Guard. Chief Warrant Officer 5, Teresa A. Domeyer, Command Chief Warrant Officer. Lieutenant General Jody J. Daniels, Chief of the Army Reserve. Command Sergeant Major Andrew Lombardo, Command Sergeant Major of the Army Reserve. Chief Warrant Officer 5, Patrick R. Nelligan, Command Chief Warrant Officer for the Army Reserve. General Michael Garrett, who will be our speaker, and I'll introduce in more length later. Lieutenant General Guy Swan, Vice President of Education for AUSA. General Paul Kern, U.S. Army retired. General Curtis Scaparrotti, U.S. Army retired. Lieutenant General Antonio Agudo and Command Sergeant Major John McGuire from the 1st Army. Lieutenant General Raymond Dingle from the United States Army Medical Command. Lieutenant General Flem Walker from the Army Materiel Command. So on behalf of General Brown, who's the new president of AUSA, let me thank our national partner sponsor for their support of today's forum. Our sponsor is Light Fighter Systems. Light Fighter is a family-owned, VA-certified, service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, and all 3 owners are Army combat vets, Vietnam and Iraq. Light Fighter is a U.S. manufacturer of rugged, lightweight, versatile, and highly mobile individual shelter systems and other tactical gear for the U.S. military. All Light Fighter products are proudly made in America. Light Fighter is represented by their president, Colonel Rich Cochise, and wife Kay, along with company CEO Mike Cochise. Could the Light Fighter crew please stand and be recognized? I wish you'd get us something to eat is what we need here. Also, we are honored to have in attendance this morning a room full of special guests and senior members of the Army leadership. We'd like to highlight the recipients of the 2021 McLean and Rudder medals. Major General Joseph Gerard and Lieutenant Colonel John Dias, retired, are the recipients. Could you stand and be recognized? We have a number of AUSA board members, region presidents, and senior fellows present with us this morning. Could you please stand and be recognized? I'd like to recognize the following outstanding soldiers. I'm not sure if they're present or not. and I'd ask them to stand and be recognized when they're introduced. First Lieutenant Amber M. English, who is a gold medalist in the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games and an Army Reserve soldier. Staff Sergeant Sandra Updegraft, Olympian in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics and also an Army Reserve soldier. Sergeant First Class Rigoberto Rodriguez Fernandez, Army Reserve Recruiter of the Year. And for current serving and past adjutant generals, could you please stand and be recognized? Army Reserve commanding generals, past and present, please stand to be recognized. Currently serving and retired warrant officers, please stand and be recognized. And currently serving and retired command sergeant majors, would you please stand to be recognized? My final introduction to you this morning is our AUSA staff, who work hard 365, 24/7 to make this happen for us. Lieutenant Colonel retired Mark Wolf and Assistant Director for Army Reserve Affairs. Mark, where are you? And a guy who got drafted and he's back on the active list, Stan Crow, who has come back to help and assist in this particular event. There's Stan. At this point, I'd like to ask Colonel Bill Beiswinger to come forward and begin the awards presentations.
Thank you, General Carpenter. When the United States Army Forces Command was established in 1973, it was charged with the readiness of all units in the United States. The first commander of that organization, General Walter T. Kerwin, Jr., dedicated himself to the task of preparing all Army elements. In recognition of his great contribution to the reserve components, the three associations represented here today, AUSA, the National Guard Association, and the Reserve Officers Association, jointly established the Walter T. Kerwin, Jr. Readiness Award to recognize annually outstanding Army National Guard and Army Reserve units. I don't know if she's in the audience. Is Miss Deborah Kerwin, the granddaughter of General Kerwin, in attendance today? Okay, she's normally here and representing her grandfather and her family, but she unfortunately could not make it today. The selection process is difficult. The Chief National Guard Bureau selects the Army National Guard unit, and the Commanding General, Army Forces Command, selects the Army Reserve unit. It is presented to the unit with the highest level of readiness in its respective component. To be considered, each unit must have been rated as having superior performance in 8 specific areas, as well as meeting other criteria. This time, I'd like to ask General Garrett and Major General Carpenter to please join me on the stage. The award includes the inscription, and I quote, "Today, combat-ready reserve forces are more important to our nation's security than they have ever been in our history." Signed, Walter T. Kerwin, Jr. Given the broad competition, every member of the winning unit can take justifiable pride in his or her contributions to the Army's readiness. Would Lieutenant Colonel Evelyn Parks please join us on the stage? She will be accepting the award for the 324th Expeditionary Signal Battalion, United States Army Reserve. The citation reads as follows: The Walter T. Kerwin, Jr. Readiness Award for the Army's most outstanding reserve unit is presented to the 324th Expeditionary Signal Battalion, Fort Gordon, Georgia, of the United States Army Reserve. The 324th Expeditionary Signal Battalion successfully mobilized 4 detachments from each of its organic companies to 3 combatant commands, totaling over 300 soldiers and over 400 pieces of equipment. During these simultaneous mobilizations to the U.S. Central Command, Indo-Pacific Command, and European Command areas of responsibility, the 324th ESB's switching and transport systems teams connected warfighters to the DoD information network, enabling combatant commanders to command and control their forces in support of the national military strategy. The 324th ESB's headquarters and headquarters company distinguished itself as a superior unit throughout its deployment in support of Special Operations Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve at forward sites in Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and Turkey. This service reflects great credit upon themselves, the United States Army Reserves, and the United States Army. They also have concurrent units that are deployed, companies of the 324th in support of Atlantic Resolve and the Combined Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve. Let's give them all a round of applause. Will Lieutenant Colonel Kleinschmidt and Command Sergeant Major Robert Schmidt come to the stage along with Brigadier General Michael Oster, Army Assistant Adjutant General, South Dakota National Guard, to accept the award for the 152nd Combat Sustainment Support Battalion. The citation reads as follows. The Walter T. Kerwin Jr. Readiness Award for the Outstanding Army National Guard Unit is the 152nd Combat Sustainment Battalion of the South Dakota Army National Guard. The 152nd Combat Sustainment Battalion has distinguished itself as a battalion both in its impressive resilience and to heightened training demands brought about by their assignment to the focused, ready unit pool. The hard work and dedication of the soldiers of this battalion resulted in 3 of the 4 battalion's units receiving the Superior Unit Award without waivers. Their consistent, outstanding performance, unwavering dedication to mission readiness, and overall professionalism brings great credit upon their unit, the Army National Guard, and the United States Army. General Carpenter.
So let's give the commanders and the personnel that received the awards another round of applause, please. And I need to recognize the National Guard Association of the United States and the Army Reserve Officers Association for their participation and support for these 2 awards that these recipients just received. So thank you very much for that. I need, as is usual in this kind of position, I missed a couple people, whether you believe that or not, in terms of recognition. First of all, Lieutenant General Retired A.C. Roper is here, I think. Would you please stand? Still serving. Well, you know, what are you going to do? Fire me? Okay, so I know this guy's not still serving. General Dick Cody, please stand. He was here. He must have saw who the host was and left. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to ask Lieutenant General Thurman's here too? Oh my God. Well, stand and be recognized. Oh, you are standing. Okay, so, you know, I didn't think it was possible I missed anybody in the introductions, but I guess that's the way it goes. Thank you, General Thurman, and our guests and VIPs for being here. This is a very important event, as you all know. So let's get to the part of this that I think you want to hear, and that's from the leadership of the National Guard, Reserve, and the Forces Command Commander. So I'd like to ask Lieutenant General John Jensen to please come forward for your remarks.
Thanks, Ray. Great to see you this morning. You're doing a wonderful job standing in, as you always do. And I tell you, when I was told we were moving this from a breakfast to a panel, I said, oh, this is going to be awesome because nobody's going to show up. And so thanks to everybody who's here this morning, in part to help recognize our great Army Reserve unit and our great Army Guard unit that were just recognized for their outstanding performance. General Howkinson, good morning. General Garrett, good morning, sir. Good to see you. Jody, always good to see you. And we've had across the Army, we've had a very challenging 18 months, and I'm going to talk a little bit of that about as it relates to the Army National Guard. But the first thing I'd like to say, General Garrett, we just really appreciate your leadership at FORSCOM. Jody, your leadership in the Army Reserve, and another great teammate, Tony Agudo, over here at First Army. Collectively, us four are really responsible for most of the readiness in the United States Army, Compo 3, Compo 2, and then obviously with General Garrett at FORSCOM with Compo 1. And what I like to say is what a close, tight team this is. How well we work together, how focused we are together, and sir, I'd just like to thank you for your leadership at FORSCOM because it really starts there. And so for the last 18 months, our nation and our Army has experienced really unparalleled events. However, in the Army Guard, what I'd like to highlight this morning is our support to the warfighter and our support to the gift map has never wavered. Despite these disruptions, our Army National Guard remains in a steady state of readiness. To expand that just a little bit, here in the most recent training year, 2021, the Army National Guard participated in 24 joint exercise program events with approximately 5,000 Army Guard soldiers from 23 units and 48 states in support of our Army Service Component Commands as well as our Combatant Command Theater Security Cooperation Plans. And we did that in a very unique environment of COVID-19 and COVID-19 restrictions. The Army Guard continued individual and collective training at all echelons of the command. We took a loss of some of our training during 2020, but we were able to regain a little momentum this year, conducting 5 CTC rotations, which is the most we've conducted in the Army Guard since 2005, 3 division warfighter level exercises, 3 XCTC rotations. Undoubtedly, the training of our soldiers prepared our selected units for missions overseas and increased contingency readiness for anticipated missions. In addition, this type of training and preparation enables our Army Guard leaders and citizen soldiers to employ their skills and apply them to new environments or new challenges. For example, while we can draw Army Guard participation in the global war on terrorism all the way back to September 11th, 2001, we take particular pride that we were also present at the end of the conflict in Afghanistan, where elements from Minnesota, Massachusetts, Virginia, and other states assisted the evacuation of withdrawal of our forces and our allies. And now we are in support of Operation Allies Welcome alongside the Army Reserve and our active component brothers and sisters, as this mission in Afghanistan isn't completely over yet. During training year 2021, we had over 11,000 Army Guard soldiers deployed across CENTCOM, area of operations, Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan, other places. Our largest formation last year was the 256th Infantry Brigade Combat Team from Louisiana, who's currently now en route back home, ending their most recent deployment. Domestically, of course, we faced complex short notice and emerging missions, some of which the nation has not seen in a century. And the soldiers of the Army Guard have been nothing short of magnificent in their response. Over the past 18 months, we faced a rare mix of missions, from supporting our communities in response to COVID-19, providing approximately 39,000 soldiers at any given time to that mission, to include now responding to floods, hurricanes, wildfires, as well as continuing our mission along the southwest border, both in a Title X status and our state active duty status. Our Army National Guard members were always ready to support the needs of our nation, the needs of their state, and the needs of their community during a time not seen within our lifetime. In January, we had approximately 23,800 Army National Guard service members conduct Operation Capital Response to support federal and local agency in our nation's capital. This operation was a true short-notice mission, as you all remember, and was unprecedented in the Army Guard's history, as personnel from all 50 states, 3 territories came here in support of the District of Columbia and responded to the needs of the nation in less than a week. Our diverse mission portfolio provides us with the ability to prioritize training our missions, balance our future requirements with current and emerging operations, and the opportunity to build continuing relationships with our state partners. A couple weeks ago, I had the honor of traveling to Europe. 2 places specifically that I was able to visit was Croatia and Poland. And what I saw, in addition to our great soldiers, were the great partnerships that continue to exist through our state partnership program. And in this experience, everywhere from the Balkans, where I attended the Adriatic 5 Chad Conference, all the way to the Baltics, where I was able to visit the Enhanced Force Protection Mission in Poland. You know, and the Army, or the National Guard State Partnership Program, currently we're partnered with over 83 different nations from every geographic combatant commander's AOR, and I just looked at, the battle group there in Poland, currently a battalion from the Washington Army National Guard, partnered with allies from Romania, Croatia, and the United Kingdom, and what a great mission that is, and it really gets to one of our asymmetric advantages over all of our enemies, and that is our partnerships and our allies. And then finally, I'd just like to mention, as it relates to our future in the Army Guard, you know, as the Army begins to transform into a multi-domain operating force, the Army National Guard will be ready to synchronize our readiness and our modernization efforts right alongside the Army and the Army Reserve. We know that there will be challenges ahead as it relates to this effort, but we will continue to work to provide predictability to our soldiers as we balance our state and federal missions to meet the needs of our nation and ensure our force is manned, trained, and equipped to meet our nation's needs, our state's needs, and our community's needs. And so again, I'd just like to thank everybody this morning for coming and joining us at this first event of AUSA. So thanks everybody. Have a great conference.
Thank you, Lieutenant General Jensen. Next up is Lieutenant General Jody Daniels, U.S. Army Reserve.
And I'm one of the fortunate few that can take off a mask for just a couple minutes. So greetings all, and thanks for the warm welcome. Thanks, it's so great to see everyone that's here. All the distinguished guests that are here with us this morning. And as General John Jensen said, it is a really great team. We've got General Garrett, General Gudo, and we are working well together, and it's really nice to be able to have that camaraderie and that ability to have those interactions that are very, very friendly, collegial, and to be able to move forward with all of our priorities. And thank you to AUSA, one of those things, AUSA, for hosting this great event, and to our sponsors as well. It's unfortunate that we couldn't have a classic car with us here today, because I'm the current car and we have the old cars, the used cars, and it would have been nice to have seen General Stoltz as the classic car. So it's sad that he couldn't make it, and I was really looking forward to that great joke. However, okay, so it's great to see everyone, And in the wake of all that's happened over the past year, I'm very happy to be back here, sort of to be in person, and really great to be out and have those live interactions with soldiers rather than over those VTC, Zooms, CVR, all those other mechanisms that we're using to keep in contact, but to be able to see people face to face. Of the three components, as General Jensen has mentioned, we've never really been more in sync than we are now, and our priorities of people, readiness, modernization. And if the past year is any indication of what we can achieve together, I'd say we're well on our way to achieving our shared Army vision of becoming the premier multi-domain operations capable force of the future. When I became the Chief of Army Reserve, the DoD response to COVID-19 was already underway. The innovation and adaptability of our soldiers was on everyone's radar. First, this was a team effort, with all the services and components performing spectacularly. But for the Army Reserve, the opportunity to innovate came about when non-doctrinal organizations were requested and required to support and augment local healthcare systems. We adapted our forces to create Urban Augmentation Medical Task Force, that's quite a mouthful, or AUMTFs, or it was just quite the opportunity. These were expeditionary, deployable, and scalable medical teams that had never only existed in concept, but in the days and weeks that followed the start of the epidemic, the Army Reserve doctors, nurses, and medical professionals found themselves in the most impacted cities across America, augmenting and supporting overwhelmed medical staffs. While medical capabilities were among the most requested forces, logistics, engineering, military intelligence, aviation, and legal experts were also engaging across the country. More than 5,000 Army Reserve soldiers participated in the COVID-19 response here at home, and more than 16,000 were deployed to 23 countries across the globe. Soldiers who were not directly engaged in the COVID-19 response were busy adapting and finding new ways to maintain readiness. These virtual platforms allowed soldiers to train on their individual specialties and stay connected with their units and at the height of the pandemic. As conditions allowed, they went from training in small cohorts to collective training with precautions, participating in exercises and training events such as River Assault at Fort Hood, Global Medic, Defender Pacific, just to name a few. I have no doubt that this demonstrates to allies, partners, and any would-be adversaries the Army's ability to stay on mission and overcome any challenge that comes our way. At a point when vaccine solutions hadn't been developed, thousands of soldiers stepped up to the challenge with the skills and expertise needed to make a difference both here at home and around the world, including Germany, Poland, and the Pacific territories. To say I'm proud of them would be a gross understatement. Over the past 18 months, the Army Reserve quickly adapted to this unique environment and operational challenges, and we will continue to do so in support of the nation. As we look to the future, I'd like to take the next 30 minutes or so, not quite that long, to touch on just a couple of our top priorities, that people, readiness, and modernization. When it comes to people, the focus is on creating an Army Reserve experience that will attract and retain the best soldiers and talent in the force, particularly junior officers and NCOs. Our goal is to inspire young people to say, I think I'd like to pursue my dream of becoming a soldier and a leader in the Army Reserve, while at the same time pursuing my other dream of becoming, maybe a 15-time Olympic national shooting champion or an Olympic gold medalist. Congratulations to Staff Sergeant Sandra Updegraft and Lieutenant Amber English, by the way, both achieving their dreams. Our objective is to create a training environment that will allow our mid-grade soldiers to grow as leaders and as individuals, while providing the balance they need to succeed and thrive in both their military and civilian capacities. Balancing civilian careers with serving in uniform and meeting individual and collective requirements in just 38 days, when you combine battle assembly periods with annual training, is a reserve component unique challenge. But by investing in and prioritizing people, we'll make our soldiers, our units, and ultimately the Army as a whole, a stronger and more lethal force. So we're prioritizing programs and initiatives that will help our soldiers maintain that critical balance between their military service and their civilian lives by strengthening our support to them and their families and improving the Army Reserve experience. This includes a renewed focus on soldier family readiness groups. Note to John, thank you. Because families are crucial to our readiness, and their support is key to overcoming many problems confronting military life. Establishing private-public partnerships that foster and build a nationwide network of corporate, profit and nonprofit, and academic industry partners. With these programs, we will enhance soldier readiness and bring additional capabilities to the Army Reserve and to the nation. And also leveraging the Army Reserve Ambassador Program, which includes ambassadors like Mr. John Diaz, who is being recognized here today for his efforts. Our ambassadors are out there every day engaging with key stakeholders in communities across America, helping to build a cadre of supporters for our Army Reserve soldiers and families, as well as the National Guard and the Army. I know I've used up most of my time talking about our people, but I thought that might happen, and that's because they're really great people. But let me quickly touch on readiness and modernization before I yield the floor. The Army Reserve's current readiness focus is very much tied to our people focus, mastering the fundamentals, junior leader development, and increasingly more collective training and exercises to support current and future fights. And we're getting after it. I've touched on some of our collective training exercises, and then here are I'm just going to give a couple of examples of our current missions at home and around the world. So there's what we call Task Force Oceania, which has recently been renamed, but it's headquartered at the Army Reserve's 9th Mission Support Command in Hawaii. Task Force Oceania consists of soldiers from all three components who are focused on engaging and cultivating meaningful and lasting relationships with Pacific Island country personnel. Task Force Oceania demonstrates how the Army Reserve remains committed to our global partners and is ready for any challenge. We also have roughly 1,500 soldiers either supporting or preparing to support Operation Allies Welcome, not only at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, but at other installations across the United States and across Europe, helping Afghans, their families, and other individuals at risk finalize their immigration processing safely so they can resettle in locations inside and outside the United States. Finally, when it comes to modernization, it's critical that we continue to build on the readiness efforts that support sustainability and lethality on the battlefield while preparing for multi-domain operations. We're involved in the framing conversations and discussions for future force formations. Protection elements and information advantage formations come to mind immediately. But I think it's important to highlight that modernization also comes down to people. Modernization that shapes tomorrow is inclusive of how we care for our people today. Army Reserve soldiers who grow and thrive as individuals and leaders while maintaining fulfilling careers outside of the military. These will go on to become the leaders and innovators of our future force. Thank you for your time and for your attention this morning, and thank you, AUSA.
Thank you, General Daniels, for your remarks. Having spent some quality time with Jack Stultz, he's definitely a used car. It is my distinct pleasure now to introduce our next speaker, the Commanding General of the United States Forces Command, General Michael X. Garrett. You're not going to let me read the bio?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
General Michael Garrett is the 23rd Commander of the United States Army Forces Command. As the commander of the United States Army's largest organization, he commands 215,000 active duty soldiers and 190,000 in the U.S. Army Reserve, while providing training and readiness oversight of the United States Army National Guard. In total, the Forces Command team includes 745,000 soldiers and 96,000 civilians. General Garrett has commanded at every level from company through Army Service Component Command and led units in combat operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. A career infantryman, General Garrett received his commission upon graduation from Xavier University. Following his initial military training courses, including Ranger, Pathfinder, and Jump Master, he served his formative years in the 75th Ranger Regiment and the 82nd Airborne Division, where he commanded the 3rd Battalion, 325th Infantry Airborne, 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. He also commanded the 4th Brigade Combat Team Airborne 25th Infantry Division Light, which he deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Following brigade command, General Garrett served as the Deputy Commandant General of the United States Recruiting Command and subsequently as the Chief of Staff, 18th Airborne Corps. In support of Operation New Dawn, he deployed to Iraq as Deputy Chief of Staff for the United States Forces, Iraq. Returning stateside, he served as the Commanding General of the United States Army Alaska before assuming duty as the Chief of Staff, United States Central Command. His most recent assignment was as Commanding General, United States Army Central, USARCENT, and Coalition Forces Land Component Commander, CFLIC. General Garrett, the podium's yours.
Thank you. You're doing a great job. Well, good morning, everyone, and it is an honor to be able to address you all this morning. And I want to thank everybody for joining us, particularly to the National Guard and Army Reserve leaders who made time for this forum. I do not take for granted the fact that you made time for this. You know, I find it interesting that we're talking about a community of 521,000 people who by definition mostly work weekends. And we're having this conversation at 8 in the morning Eastern Standard Time on a federal holiday that is probably still a work day for most civilian jobs. I'm interested to learn who among the 521,000 Guard and Reserve soldiers are part of this morning's conversation. If you are one of them, and you are fortunate enough to have the time and the access to be able to join us, thank you. But perhaps even more interesting, and I am even more interested in your colleagues. The majority of the 521,000 Guard and Reserve soldiers who will never hear this conversation and the perspectives they are missing because they are rightfully otherwise engaged. This includes the thousands of National Guard and Army Reserve soldiers who are deployed today. It also includes M-Day and TPU soldiers, soldiers in the purest form, citizens who have no obligation to attend or listen into a couple of generals on a weekday because they have to go to work, or taking care of their kids, sending them to school, or maybe even in class themselves, or simply busy living their lives. I'm willing to bet many of you have been in their position at other points in your career. So I trust you to not only represent their interests throughout AUSA, but also bring some of this week's ideas and lessons back to them. It is my humble honor to have been asked to speak with you today. My dad, as many of you know, was an active duty soldier. I'm an active duty soldier. And while I often tell people that I've spent my entire life in and around the Army, events like this serve as a reminder that I have really spent my entire life around less than half of the Army. TPU and M-Day soldiers and I have many important things in common. We share the same core values, similar experiences in training and in combat, a strong sense of duty, discipline, and selfless service. But I acknowledge that I have not experienced the life of a non-mobilized Guard or Reserve soldier. I think that's why anyone that knows me would tell you that I take every opportunity to gush on our National Guard and our Army Reserve soldiers. It has been my honor to serve alongside many of you and appreciate your capabilities in training and in combat. It really is eye-watering when I think about the demands on you and your family's lives, and to be honest, I'm not sure I could do it. But because you and your colleagues can maintain the kind of pace the Army demands of you, America has the strongest, most capable, most impressive Army ever fielded in the history of the world. You know, we would have failed a long time ago if it weren't for the Army Guard and the Army Reserve. And that's the main reason I'm here with you today, and that is to say thank you for not only serving in our reserve component units, but also for serving with the level of stamina and resilience you and your soldiers bring to your mission. Because it's not enough that America has a National Guard and Army Reserve. We need you to be ready to fight and win our nation's wars. And that takes work. It takes planning. To be trained, ready, and available, it takes blood, sweat, and tears. And it takes your hearts and your souls. I will never challenge the blood, sweat, and tears and heart and soul that a National Guard or Army Reserve soldier puts into their teams and into their training. However, as the FORSCOM commander whose sole purpose in life is to evaluate and to ensure the readiness of our total Army force, I owe it to you to say that at times, and this is not new to any of the leaders that are in here, especially over the last 20 months, the readiness of some of our National Guard and Army Reserve units do concern me. That's fair, right? This year, we have been fighting through the most deadly pandemic of our time. We have sent Army National Guard formations to bring stability in the wake of an attempted insurrection just 16 blocks away from this very convention center. We recognize the 20-year anniversary of the terror attacks that changed our nation and our military forever. We ended the longest war in American history. And with all of this, you're still fighting fires, serving on our borders, and keeping our Afghan partners safe. And still you and your fellow soldiers are serving with honor around the world. And all of these missions consume readiness. And no amount of blood, sweat, tears, heart, and soul alone can rebuild or sustain that readiness. I cannot expect any more from National Guard and Army Reserve soldiers than you have already been giving. Instead, and this is where I'm interested in your perspective. As I look in the mirror, if I am the only one with growing concerns about our ability to man and train your formations, then am I, and is the Army, expecting too much from you? At what point and how do we consider better managing our expectations for the reserve component? Now, I suspect some people in this audience are thinking, and many of them have told me this before, but no way, sir, how dare you talk about expecting anything less from us? We're strong, we're proud. Give us even more work. We can do it. We'll make time. If that's you, I respect your enthusiasm, but also wonder if there's something about your situation that allows you to want more. After all, I would expect the Guard and Reserve's hardest chargers and biggest advocates to make time for a weekend holiday forum about the Army. But what about our colleagues who are at work, school, or simply recognize that they have no obligation to spend their Monday morning listening to this discussion or this general? However, they're no less professional, committed, or patriotic than any of us. But they have different perspectives and priorities. And what would they say about the Army's expectations? Do they want higher standards, longer days, more Army-related calls and emails during the week, or an unsustainable op tempo? Over the 8 years, actually 7 would be closer, but over 7 years of every single day, being able to interact with, to spend time with our Guard and Reserve soldiers has given me a healthy respect and admiration for everything that they do. And as I talk to young officers and NCOs, I am concerned. When the 34th was deployed to OSS, as most divisions, they sent one of their very best majors to be the RCENT LNO. And this kid was a superstar. And he was a superstar in the job that he had, and he was a superstar as an officer in the Guard. And I remember a conversation that he and I had. I asked him, I said, "Hey man, what's next for you?" And he said, "Sir, I don't know if I can keep doing this." I don't know if I keep doing this. And I think, and again, this may be just one active duty general's perspective, but there have been a number of young men and women who have to make tough decisions about doing what they love, and that's serving in the Army, but also doing those things that they have to do for their families. So as we look at 22, should it be the Army's opportunity to reset what we ask of the Army Reserve and National Guard? Should we adjust the ways in which we consume the readiness that you work so hard to build? I don't know the way forward, but for the sake of candid discussion, you deserve to know what's on my mind. 22 could be an opportunity to make some adjustments. We are beginning the regionally aligned Readiness and Modernization model, which is built, designed to provide more stability and predictability for our forces. And like most things that we do, this is a Compo 1 principally focused effort, but we're working very, very hard to extend this to the Guard and the Reserve to provide them the same level of predictability that we seek. So this week at AUSA, we'll ask you to have some tough conversations about your people, your force, and our readiness expectations. When I see you around the convention center or any other time around the Army, I am always interested in hearing your perspective. But even more than that, what I really want to do is just shake your hand and thank you. Thank you for your service. And again, it is amazing to me there are very few active duty soldiers. Maybe very few is not accurate. But they don't know you the way that I do, and they can't appreciate the sacrifices, the very, very unique sacrifices that you make. I speak to all of the National Guard and Reserve battalion and brigade command teams every month at the pre-command course. And I always take a little bit of time to walk them through what the lieutenant colonel or colonel of Guard or Reserve, M-Day TPU, what they had to do over the course of their career to get there. It is incredibly instructive, and for me, it is incredibly humbling as, again, I consider everything that you all do and the unique sacrifices that you all make to serve in our nation's Army. So thanks again, everybody. Thank you so much for your service. AUSA, thanks for bringing us together again. The easy decision could have been to, hey, we'll do this virtually, but that's not who we are, right? And so thanks, Guy, for all that AUSA does for us. God bless each and every one of you. God bless General Odierno and his family, and God bless our Army. Thank you.
General, thank you for your very instructive remarks, and thank you for being our guest speaker today. I have a memento to present to you, less than $25, for your appearance here today. And again, we really do appreciate your leadership and what you're doing for our Army, the total Army.
Thanks.
So I think you would have to agree with me that our Army is in, our total Army is in very capable hands with General Garrett, General Daniels, and General Jensen. Would those three leaders please stand, and let's give them another round of applause. I want to extend my apologies to General Roper for my comment about him being retired. So, sir, my apologies. Thanks to each of the associations joining us this morning. We appreciate what you've done as you look after soldiers, their families, priorities, and to each of you, thank you for what you've done. This is the real power in agreeing on the critical issues before our Army. Again, thank you for our national partner sponsor for today's event, Light Fighter Systems, which is represented by their president, Rich Cochise, wife Kay, and CEO Mike. A word about membership. Membership is strength in associations. Membership is a strength in AUSA. And I'm proud to say our membership has grown to over 200,000 members. I'd encourage you, if you're not already a member, to join and stop by our pavilion on the display floor. We are about to attend the opening ceremonies, and those wishing to attend, it is in the ballroom at the top of the floor in the next building. The annual meeting badges you are wearing will allow you inside the ballroom and will also allow you to tour our exhibits when they open a little later today. The ceremony for the ballroom begins at 9:30 this morning. Because of limited seating, you may view a live streaming of the ceremony in room 207 A and B. Again, thank you for attending this meeting this morning, and to our speakers, thank you for your comments, and to our awardees, congratulations on a great effort. I hope this kicks off a great AUSA annual event for you, and so enjoy. This is our first face-to-face event in the last couple of years, so this is an opportunity to re-engage with our fellow soldiers, retired civilians, and everybody associated with the United States Army. So again, thank you for coming this morning.